problem is the pharmaceuticals. Only certain people like the number boys gonna get the license to sell it. Only certain doctors gonna get the license to sell it. So it's gonna be a big racketeer again, and the little boy who's trying to grow a plant in his backyard can be arrested because he don't have a license to be a grower. So you got to understand the business behind what this is all about.
I got you.
Last November, when I was in Ocho Rios, Jamaica, when I went up 9 miles where they buried Bob Marley, when you reach there, the tourist buses, the people come to the entrance before you go inside the museum and everything, and they give you the ganja free.
If you want.
They give you the ganja. Police be there. You can stand up and smoke the ganja on the side of the police, and nothing happens. You can't walk around with a pound on you, but you could walk around with a joint on you. It never did nothing to me. When I go to doctor checkups every year, they don't tell me I'm sick from this or sick from that. I don't have no sugar problem, no high blood pressure problem, but I choose to drink my Guinness, which is illegal, which harms me more than the marijuana, and I smoke palm cigarettes, which harms me more than the marijuana, and I have to sit down and listen to you and your guests talk about smoking dope. Let me tell you something, Mr. McKinney, before I go. That bowling alley where I wrote to, more marijuana was smoked down there when I was working there, more vodka and Red Bull and everything, and the bowling alley was built, and it's a beautiful building, and more what you call dope was more dope smokers put down those beautiful lanes and everything like that.
I got you. More power to the dope smokers then.
But hey, look at the good work that they did. The man that did a very old man, Mr. Miller right there, a very old man who did most of the carpentry work in there. Every lunchtime he went on the back step and he didn't even eat nothing. All he did was roll up his joint and smoke his dope, come back inside and work on those doggone carpentry work. And he did most of that beautiful carpentry work in there.
I hear you.
And Mr. Miller brought in the Jamaican fella to do the finish work.
I think you made your point, Sparky. I hear what you're saying. I think you made your point about you don't like us or like me saying about these dope smoking fellas. I call it dope. You may call it ganja. You may have all other names for it. I don't know. The point is, I say what I say because I want to emphasize what it is that we are cultivating in our country. It goes beyond who can build what and who can do this whole thing. I categorize them as people who smoke dope. That's how I see it. I see it as people who smoke dope. Now, you may say that means nothing to you, and you take exception that I call you a dope smoker. But then again, that's how I see it. Respect that. I appreciate it. Hard copy, how you doing?
How you doing, Steve?
Very good.
Good. The older generation would not like weed, but Steve, when you read the second verse in Psalm 68, the Most High God speak about smoke and the wicked perishing like smoke and melting like wax. But the legal history of cannabis in the United States is where all of this situation really began, pertaining to the regulation of cannabis, legal term marijuana or marijuana, for medical, recreational, and industrial purpose in the United States. Increased restrictions on labeling of cannabis as a poison began in many states between 1906 and onward. They promoted it as a poison, something that the creator. I'm going to tell you something about, not on this show, but you don't have the time. But there was a time growing up in Ackland, if a person died in the farm that we used to call the field, if you were not a smoker, you could not touch or go next to that body to retrieve it, to bring it out, to be taken care of. Now, so I have a lot of history, but let's just move on for another 2 minutes, and then I'll go, Steve. Okay, so what I was saying, in many states...
You can't tell me how much time. You say your point.
That's true.
Okay, say your point.
I beg your pardon. Definitely can't do that. But just let me make my point right here for another 30 seconds or so, if I can. All right? But the point I'm trying to make here, between 1906, by 1920, the prohibition began. Okay, in 1930, cannabis was regulated as a drug. In 1930, Okay? And so what I'm saying to my learned friends and my Bahamian sovereign citizens who I love and defend with my life and my freedom and my resources in the last 23 years to be exact, the Uniform State Narcotic Drug Act, the first national regulation was the Marijuana Tax Act of 1937. Did they teach us anything about their taxes that they were receiving from something that my creator, yes, Amos, do smoke? And some of us, if it wasn't for marijuana, the chemicals in the food, the chemicals in the air, the chemicals in the water, the chemicals would have already taken care of our lives. That's the only thing that can neutralize the poison. They were correct when they tried to call something good, that God, everything that God created was good. And the herb and the leaf of the herbs was for the healing of the nation. And that which was created for the healing of the nation was labeled by United States of America, perpetrated, in my humble opinion, by their allies, Great Britain, number one, okay, and the rest. So let us talk sense. This plant that was found on King Solomon's grave, okay? Everything that God did and called good, they want to call bad. Well, listen to me. Read Ecclesiastes chapter 8, where when you get to the part where it says, listen to the king, then you all can remember. The Spirit of the soul start talking to you soon, shortly. Okay.
He's finished, right? Okay, all right. Hard copy, how are you? This week, even perhaps on Sunday. And I want to take this right from here. Steve, can we do that?
And for over 8 years, the U.S. has gone without an ambassador to the Bahamas, a fact China is now taking advantage of. When America's Pearson Sharp explains how U.S. neglect for the island nation has given China a foothold on America's doorstep.
Since 2011, the United States has gone without an ambassador to the Bahamas. The Caribbean island nation is small, with a population of only about 400,000, but it attracts a lot of U.S. tourism, and sitting just 50 miles off the coast of Florida, it's right in the middle of one of the busiest shipping lanes in the world. That fact hasn't gone unnoticed by the Chinese. China has set its sights on the Bahamas and has invested billions in building new infrastructure and industry across the country. New roads, new businesses, new hotels, and booming Chinese immigration has led to many businesses being staffed with more Chinese workers than local Bahamians. Reports show over 200,000 Chinese are illegally smuggled into the Caribbean every year to open up their own shops or work at Chinese businesses, with many sending their money back to China. Officials say these practices are crowding out small retailers, and by selling inferior goods and using Chinese workers for what amounts to slave labor, they're putting locals out of business. Chinese state banks are also putting up tens of millions of dollars for building projects like new ports and bridges, as well as a huge new Chinese embassy in the heart of downtown Nassau. The Chinese government even gifted a new national stadium to the Bahamas to the tune of $50 million. And China's state-owned Export-Import Bank dropped nearly $3 billion to put up the luxurious Baha Ma Resort in New Providence. Thanks to investments like these, some analysts go as far as to say China now owns the Bahamas. These developments paint a grim picture for the future of one of America's closest neighbors. But what alternative does the Bahamas have? According to the Bahamian government, they simply can't afford to build huge projects like these on their own. So, with China stepping in and essentially colonizing the Bahamas, where does that leave the United States? Washington is choosing to remain on the sidelines as China swoops in to develop strategic real estate right on America's front door. And now, some 55 miles east of Palm Beach, China is building a massive new shipping port, a strategic location which could be used for military vessels and submarines. China already has a military presence in the Caribbean, occupying old Soviet bases in Cuba. But could Washington soon have to deal with the reality of Chinese warships off the coast of Florida? But China isn't the only reason the U.S. should be concerned. The Bahamas are also a major gateway for drugs, weapons, and illegal aliens coming into America. While Mexico comes to mind when many think of U.S. border security, the Bahamas just received a Tier 1 ranking from the State Department for human trafficking. And although the Bahamas historically has imported most of its trade goods from the U.S., such as agriculture, the country is beginning to turn to China to fill those demands, costing American companies their business. In 2017, President Trump nominated San Diego developer and veteran industrialist Doug Manchester to the role of U.S. ambassador to the Bahamas. Yet in the 2 years since then, Congress has stalled on his confirmation. With the Bahamian economy struggling on its own and China building inroads, the United States could seize an opportunity to step in and help the Bahamas create jobs and improve economic performance. That's a role traditionally filled by an ambassador. While some consider the appointment a plum position, the alternative is leaving the post vacant while crime grows and China sinks its claws into the island unopposed. Reducing crime, fighting human and drug trafficking, as well as building infrastructure would not only benefit the Bahamas, but the safety and security of the United States as well. Pearson Sharp, One American News.
Now, of course, that's Pearson Sharp talking for One American News. That's a big story that came out this afternoon. They released that this afternoon. And it's a real situation to take a look at. We talked about building a port for aircraft and all that kind of stuff. And so this is something that speaks volumes in the sense of where we want to go next. But I want you to take a listen to what he said. And if you can, perhaps comment on something that this gentleman said in the report today, because it seems like we are now right there in the forefront of this world fight that's happening between the Bahamas or China and the United States, because this is for territory. They don't want these guys to be hanging around their place. And you see some stuff that's been happening here on our grounds with the American embassy that they're now building by Wendell Jones' old place. You see that the Chinese have built, it's not really downtown, it's all up there by Fort Montague.
That's what it is.
They call it all downtown. But you know, you could just do away with the viewpoints of the American fellow on that particular page, because they look at this whole thing as a little small thing, and they say, all that is downtown. This is all maybe by Bay Street on the Eastern Road. But the point is, we have some troubles that are happening here in the Bahamas, and we need to negotiate and deal with them.
Yes, Steve, I think that there are real challenges that we face. Venezuela is an example how you can get caught in the middle of these fights. I think the Bahamas is strategically located, whether we realize it or not. There may be a question in terms of whether our government maximize that strategic location. I don't think we do in that way. The report talk about significant amount of traffic that goes through the Bahamas and all sorts of stuff. So while there may be a sort of negative spin in this, I think from a governance point of view, when you listen to that kind of report, you should be asking yourself, why are we not in a better position than we are in the first place? You know, this shouldn't be a conversation about USA and China. This should be a conversation about our involvement, and the extent to which a small country like ours can help to shape policies in significant ways.
We've been saying this time and time again. Paul Moss and I have been talking about this umpteen times. We are not yet capitalizing on who we are. Leveraging. You know, we in the middle of the shipping lanes, but that means nothing to us. It means nothing to us. We're not using the things that we ought to be using, and that is where the big problem is. Jelly, what are your thoughts on this?
Steve, if I can wrap up in this end, we do have this big nation kind of mentality, and that is that a small country is supposed to be ruled and dictated, and unfortunately, we succumb to that kind of mindset. I watch every time I watch this, Steve, it kind of gives goosebumps to me. There's a video of it's Lyndon Pillen being interviewed in respect of the Brian Ross thing.
Yeah, Brian Ross, right.
Steve, until we get to the place to have a leader that have that kind of self-confidence.
That ain't gonna happen now.
A leader that understand the value of his nation, notwithstanding what they were saying and other stuff like that, right? And speak in that kind of space. We're going to continue to feel what they're trying to do. They say, you can go to the country, we can play tennis ball with you all. USA, China, they be shifting policies all over the place because
and we're mopey in the middle and can't get a play.
Yeah, rather than operating from our place.
This guy's saying that Donald Trump and them, because that's Donald Trump's station, as you know. Yeah. The point is, he's saying that they want to do some things in the Bahamas to create jobs and bring about the economic relief that we've been looking for, that everybody's been looking for in this country. But our policies have been against what the United States want to do, because these guys are going backdoor, playing this thing about trying to bring in and make amendments to the Immigration Act to bring other people in on their commercial enterprise bill. Those things cannot benefit the Bahamas, you know. If we can join the ranks, take advantage of this fight that's happening right now between China and the United States, if we can join the ranks and say, look, we need to have some things happen for us. What do you say in your kind of offering to make us a list? We want to know what can happen with us if we are talking about the United States. And maybe we can have some jobs and ownership and the rest of the things that can happen for us as a country to move our economy along. We're not doing that. That's what's happening. China is doing some stuff with these little mediocre jobs. They're bringing their people in, they're staffing their people with our staff. And not with our staff, with their own people. That's the kind of things that we're signing on to. So what's going to happen for the Bahamian people in this economy? Branson and them are bringing other people in to take your jobs, which you now need. So we should have a place in this conversation, and I agree with Glenn. This week, even perhaps on Sunday.